Hello and welcome to the Skydival channel, and today let's go over how you should build a sim racing gaming PC in 2026. So this right here is my new sim racing PC, pretty excited about it, and I thought while I was building it, why not I make a video on it to help better inform you guys on what's the best PC hardware to choose for a sim racing rig if you want to play Assetto Corsa, iRacing, Le Mans Ultimate, or even more casual games like Forza Horizon 6. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys what's the best PC hardware to choose from the CPU to the GPU for sim racing, as well as detailing my experience in building my own sim racing rig in the NZXT H2. So with all that said, if you just wanted to skip this video and find out the parts list I used to build this PC, I've got it all linked for you in the PC build strategy link in the description down below. If you wanted to recreate this PC one for one, you don't have to. The point of this video is I just basically want to show you guys all the various options and paths you can choose for building your own sim racing rig, but it's there if you want to reference it at any point. So with all that said, I want to give a quick thank you to NZXT for sponsoring this video. So the first thing I think you should consider when building a sim racing gaming PC is what form factor you want to choose, because I've seen many different types of sim racing rigs on the internet, and a lot of you guys have different setups. Some of you are doing the basic thing of just having like a steering wheel and motor mounted to your desktop with your pedals underneath your desk. You could be someone like me who has their sim racing rig tucked away into the corner of their room, or you could be someone with a huge 3D motion, multi-access simulator rig, and you have all the space and budget in the world to make a crazy fast gaming computer that has no restraints in terms of size. So I would consider that first, consider what sort of place your sim racing PC is going to be located in, because for my use case scenario with my simulator rig, it is one of those that is tucked away in a corner, and I want to build a PC that is small, that can fit into the rear of my sim racing setup, while still being able to plug in all my cables into my monitor, my motor, my brake pedals, so on and so forth. But the problem with a lot of small PC cases like this is that they're very thermally inefficient. And I seriously mean that. I've built and actually used and daily driven some small PC cases in the past that were ITX, and the problem I always came across with all of them is that they usually overheated, or I always had to turn down the CPU quite a bit so that it wouldn't overheat the rest of the PC case, as well as even undervolting the GPU. So I only wanted to go back to ITX if I had a good PC case that could support it thermally, and so far, it looks like the NZXT H2 that just got released is rising to that challenge. This PC case has two 120mm fans on the top of the PC case, as well as support for up to a 280mm water cooler inside the PC case. And one other thing I can tell you, especially in comparison to the original H1, is that the new H2 has a lot of mesh around all the panels in this PC case. This case should be very breathable no matter what PC hardware you put in it. So I'm pretty confident that in terms of thermals, this PC case is going to be able to handle what we're going to throw at it, because if you really want to build the best sim racing PC possible, you got to throw in a pretty fast CPU and a very capable GPU. And those two things can definitely produce heat. So I'm pretty excited to see how this PC turns out in terms of thermals and performance, which I'll be showing you guys later in this video. But otherwise, this is also one of the fastest PCs I've built this entire year. Like, I know it's ITX and this is a different form factor, but seriously, there were not that many cables to plug into the motherboard and all that. And it was a quick PC case to build in and fairly easy as well. But enough about the PC case. Let's talk about the PC hardware. What CPU should you choose for a sim racing rig? Well, in short, the more money you spend actually can translate into a better sim racing experience, because simulator games are one of the few PC genres that benefit from having a significantly faster CPU. And I mean that. If you look at gaming benchmarks for other PC gaming genres like single player games or even certain first person shooter games, you'll see that the more you spend on the CPU, the less you get in terms of returns for actual FPS. But when it comes to simulator games, there are certain CPUs that can see ridiculously high FPS numbers over entry-level or mainstream CPUs. That's because simulator games are very CPU intensive. They're performing many calculations in the background for your simulator experience. And for certain CPUs, like higher end ones that have a lot of L3 cache specifically, can greatly benefit from having that and translating to more FPS for your sim racing games. So that is to say, it is worth it to spend a little bit more on a CPU like a Ryzen 7 7800X3D, 9800X3D, 9850X3D, so on and so forth, that has 96 megabytes of L3 cache and above. But you don't have to spend that much on a CPU. It could be something more entry level like a Ryzen 5 7500F or Intel Core Ultra 225F and so on and so forth. But unlike other PC gaming genres, again, I want to state that yes, you will see improvements if you spend more on your CPU, especially if it has more L3 cache than most other CPUs, which at the moment is only really offered by AMD with their X3D CPUs. Although Intel is rumored to come out with new CPUs later this year on Nova Lake on their new LGA 1954 socket that are rumored to have a lot of L3 cache. So I just want to put that out there. If you want to go the Intel route, you're going to want to wait until later this year. And in terms of core count and clock speed, don't stress out too much about it. If you're just going to be doing sim racing, anything with 6 cores and above will be fine. If you want to do sim racing and streaming and recording and video editing and all that other stuff, an 8-core or above CPU will do the job. I'll provide specific CPU recommendations once we cover graphics cards for my favorite combos, so let's go ahead and talk about graphics cards next. When it comes to finding the best graphics cards for a sim racing gaming PC, you can really go with anything. Unlike CPUs, which certain CPUs will definitely do better just off of their architecture and preferences alone, GPUs, it doesn't really matter. The more you spend on the graphics card, the more FPS you're going to get, so on and so forth. That's pretty straightforward. There's no preferential brand I would give in this category. It doesn't matter if it's Intel, Radeon, or NVIDIA, just about all of them are going to have the exact same GPU support for simulator games. But maybe the only thing I will mention is that if you plan to do virtual reality with a VR headset, you want to stay away from Intel Arc GPUs. Those don't have any good VR support whatsoever, whereas AMD and NVIDIA do. And actually, maybe the only other thing I will bring up is that if you plan to do multi-monitor simulator racing or simulators on like say 3 1440p or 3 4K monitors, or if you're going to do something with a super ultra wide with like a 5120 by 1440 resolution, you are probably going to want a GPU with at minimum 16 gigabytes of VRAM, because that much resolution spread across 3 monitors or that ultra wide is going to be more demanding than just a single 1440p or 4K monitor. So now that you know a bit more about what CPU and GPU to get, let me go and cover my favorite CPU and GPU combos for a simulator racing PC. For the budget end, you don't have to worry too much about overspending on a CPU. We want to spend more on the GPU if you don't have that much budget. So anything with like a Ryzen 5 7500F, 7600X, or 9600X paired with an Intel Arc B580, RX 9060 XT, 16 gigabyte preferably, the 8 gigabyte is fine as well, will do great. That is essentially my $1,000 gaming PC build guide I just produced on this channel if you wanted to build a regular PC for your sim racing experiences. Or heck, you could use that same exact CPU and GPU combo and just squeeze it into an ITX PC build like what I have here in the NZXT H2. But if you have a bit more money to spend, still we're not gonna overspend on the CPU. We're gonna keep it to about the same range of a 7500F to a 9600X. But if you wanted that 8-core option, the 7700X and the 9700X are also there for you if you want to do content creation and streaming on top of your sim racing experiences. But for the GPU, we want to get something that has a decent amount of VRAM. So something like the RTX 5070 or RX 9070 GRE would be fine, but more preferably an RX 9070 would be the end all be all, because that GPU has 16 gigabytes of VRAM at one of the lowest prices. Other than 2 other GPUs that I won't talk about, I'll just keep it at that. 9070 is a really good GPU to get if you don't want to spend a lot on, say, the other GPUs I'm going to mention later on. But if you have all the money to spend in the world and you want the fastest and most optimal sim racing PC possible, as far as CPUs go, I already kind of spoiled it. Just get any Ryzen CPU that ends in X3D, and that's it. All of those are going to come with minimum 96 megabytes of L3 cache. And the reason why I mention them and completely disregard Intel, all of the latest Intel Core Ultra CPUs don't come anywhere near close in terms of L3 cache to what X3D offers. And as I just showed you, simulator games benefit greatly from having lots of L3 cache. So if you have a lot of money to spend on your CPU, you're going to want to spend it on a CPU that can actually benefit in simulator games with lots of L3 cache, which is only AMD X3D CPUs right now. But in terms of GPU options, go with whatever you want. If you got the budget, just go for it. The 9070 XT 16GB is a really good GPU option if you want to get something that's very fast while not overspending. But just heads up, right now on the DIY market, the RTX 5070 Ti and 5080 are greatly overpriced. Well, I mean, they're obviously faster GPUs, but they're not like $500 or $300 faster than a 9070 XT. Anyways, point is, if you go with any Ryzen X3D CPU, they will not bottleneck any GPU you pair up with those CPUs. That right there would be like my $2,000 gaming PC build on PCBuild.gg if you wanted to build something similar. And for the mid-range combo, that would be like my $1,500 or $1,200 PC build guides that are still relevant to this day. But other than that, with CPUs and GPU combos, the rest of the PC is pretty straightforward. Just choose enough storage for your sim racing gaming PC. For this, I went with a 2TB M.2 SSD. I don't need a whole lot. Simulator games, I mean, there's only like 5 that are ever going to be stored on this PC, so you can get away with a 1TB M.2 SSD. That can be your boot drive and game drive. But if you do content creation, then maybe perhaps you want to get an additional SSD or hard drive to store all of your VODs, all your recordings, and all of your streams. As far as RAM goes, I mean, if you're going to be doing just simulator racing and nothing on top of that, 16 gigabytes is actually fine. But if you plan to run additional applications like OBS to stream your sim racing game to Twitch, and you plan to do video editing, and you plan to do other creative tasks on top of your sim racing PC, even at the same time, then perhaps you would want to consider 32 gigabytes of memory. And as far as memory speed and cache latency goes, I mean, of course, going with a faster memory speed to lower cache latency is preferred, but with the current RAM market right now, getting that ideal RAM kit could be very costly. So I would say choose what you can get within a reasonable price range. Don't stress out too much about it. The kit that I have in here is not optimal. It's a 6000 megahertz cache latency 36 kit. Optimally, it would be cache latency 30, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it, so just don't worry too much about it. And as a matter of fact, if you go with one of those high-end Ryzen X3D CPUs, those don't care whatsoever about the speed of your memory, thanks to all the L3 cache that they have. So, fun fact. And then for the power supply, just choose enough for what your graphics card needs. For the GPU I chose in my build, I went with a 5070 Ti, and the minimum power supply for that build is a 750 watt power supply, as stated on NVIDIA's website. And for the build itself, I was sent an NZXT C850 SFX Gold, and this is going to do the trick. And it works on the NZXT H2, so this is more than enough wattage for what I need. Then when it comes to the CPU cooler, 99% of the time, I'm always going to recommend a standard air cooler. But in this case, since I went with a small ITX PC case from NZXT, you're actually going to want to go with a water cooler for this sort of build, which is why I've gone, or I was sent, the NZXT Kraken Elite 280 RGB. And this is NZXT's top-of-the-line CPU cooler. It's going to do great. I don't care about the position of my tubes. I don't know. The world is not going to end if my tubes are going from the bottom of my radiator to the CPU. But I say that because it's just easier to install it this way, and aesthetically looking, it looks better as well. But other than that, here's some of the performance of this sim racing gaming PC in action, as you can see right here. Here I'm playing, I don't know what games I'll be playing, but Here's some of the various ones. I know for sure one of them will be Forza Horizon 6, but you can see the CPU and GPU temperatures, they should be in check. And I do mean it, this PC is genuinely stowed away in the corner of my setup with the simulator rig. And from what I can tell, it's not thermal bottlenecking whatsoever, thanks to that Kraken AIO. And perhaps the 5070 Ti is helping out a little bit since it is a bit more on the energy efficient side versus say the 5080. So there you have it. That's hopefully going to give you guys a better idea of what PC hardware to choose for your sim racing gaming PC. And again, if for whatever reason you wanted to build this PC one for one exactly, I do have it linked in the description down below. But more practically, I've got various other build guides also linked in the description, from my $1,000 to $2,000 build guides. Those aren't ITX, but those can also do sim racing, and those come with their own full tutorials as well. So with all that said, I want to give one more thank you to NZXT for sponsoring this build guide. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching. And this is the Scatterville channel, signing out.